Imagine a wall of thick, acrid smoke rising not from a fire, but from the face of a man. Through the gray haze, glowing embers dangle from his wild, black hair, framing eyes that look more like a predator's than a sailor's. He stands on the deck of a massive warship, draped in 3 pistols and a heavy cutlass. A living nightmare crafted to break your will before a single shot is even fired. This was the theater of the Atlantic, and its most dedicated actor was a man the world would come to know as Blackbeard. But beneath the smoke and the terror lies a mystery that begins not with a pirate, but with a well-to-do gentleman from the English port of Bristol. His name was likely Edward Thatch, and he was far more sophisticated than the legend suggests. He was a literate man, a navigator, and a leader who understood that the greatest weapon on the high seas wasn't gunpowder, it was fear. Please watch the video until the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. The man who became a demon was born into a world of global conflict around the year 1680. While history obscures his youth, records suggest he grew up in an intelligent family, eventually inheriting a vast estate that he chose to leave behind. Instead of a life of landed comfort, he sought his fortune on the waves, serving as a privateer during the War of the Spanish Succession. In those years, men like Thatch were legal pirates, sanctioned by the British Crown to plunder enemy ships and claim a share of the spoils. He learned the art of naval warfare and the geography of the Caribbean, fueled by the promise of white gold, the sugar that flowed through Jamaica like a currency. But when the war ended in 1714, the privateers were suddenly out of work. Thousands of armed, experienced sailors were left with nothing but their ships and their hunger. Thatch, now a man in his mid-30s, traveled to the lawless haven of Nassau, where the line between sailor and outlaw finally blurred. In the spring of 1717, Thatch found his mentor in Benjamin Hornigold, a veteran pirate captain. Hornigold saw something in the younger man, a calculating intelligence that most pirates lacked. He elevated Thatch to captain, giving him a small crew and his own vessel. Together, they began a campaign of terror along the American coast, seizing merchant ships and growing their legend. It was during this time that Thatch met Stede Bonnet, a wealthy plantation owner who had abandoned his life to become the gentleman pirate. Thatch quickly realized Bonnet was unfit for command and took over his ship, the Revenge. By the autumn of 1717, Thatch was no longer just a captain. He was a commodore. Off the coast of St. Vincent, he intercepted a massive French slave ship called La Concorde. After only 2 volleys of cannon fire, the French surrendered, handing Thatch the ultimate prize. Thatch did not merely capture the ship. He transformed it. He refitted the vessel with 40 heavy guns and renamed her the Queen Anne's Revenge, a nod to the fallen house of Stuart. Now commanding one of the most powerful warships in the Caribbean, he had the firepower to challenge the Royal Navy itself. This was when the persona of Blackbeard was truly born. He cultivated a look designed to instill psychological paralysis. He grew his beard long, tying it with ribbons and tucking slow-burning fuses under his hat. When he boarded a ship, he appeared as a literal demon from the blackest pits of the ocean, wreathed in smoke. Yet, despite this terrifying image, historical records show no evidence that he ever murdered or tortured his victims. He used the mask of a monster to ensure a quick surrender, preserving both his crew and his prizes. By early 1718, Blackbeard's fleet had grown to 4 ships and nearly 400 men. He was the great devil of the West Indies, plundering the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico with impunity. But beneath the surface, his crew was growing restless. They had captured dozens of ships, but they hadn't seen a massive haul of gold in months. To keep them satisfied, Blackbeard led them to the Florida coast to scavenge the wrecks of the Spanish treasure fleet, but the gold had already been picked clean. Needing a bold move to solidify his status, he sailed north to Charleston, South Carolina. In the most audacious act of his career, he blockaded the entire port for 6 days, seizing every ship that tried to enter or leave. He took prominent citizens hostage, but he didn't demand gold or silver. Instead, he demanded a chest of medicine. His crew was being ravaged by disease, and Blackbeard knew that a healthy crew was more valuable than a mountain of jewelry. Once the medicine was delivered, the pirates vanished back into the Atlantic, but the pressure from the colonial governments was mounting. Blackbeard knew the Golden Age was ending. He sailed to Topsail Inlet, North Carolina, where he intentionally ran the Queen Anne's revenge aground. It was a cold, calculated move to break up his massive company and shed the men he no longer trusted. He marooned part of his crew, took the most valuable plunder, and headed for the town of Bath. There, he struck a deal with Governor Charles Eden, receiving a royal pardon and attempting to settle into the life of a respectable citizen. He married a local girl and set up a house on Ocracoke Island, but the call of the sea and the easy profit of piracy was too strong. Within months, he was back to his old ways, bribing the governor to look the other way while he plundered French sugar ships. But while Governor Eden was willing to be bought, others were not. Alexander Spotswood, the lieutenant governor of Virginia, saw Blackbeard as a cancer that needed to be cut out. Flouting the law, Spotswood sent a naval task force into North Carolina waters with a single instruction: bring him back dead or alive. On November 22, 1718, Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy caught the pirates off guard at Ocracoke Island. Blackbeard was outnumbered 3-1, with fewer than 30 men by his side. As the Navy sloops approached, the pirate captain didn't flee. He toasted Maynard with a glass of liquor and prepared for one final, bloody act of defiance. The battle was a chaotic struggle on the blood-slicked decks of the Navy's ships. Blackbeard fought with a fury that seemed supernatural. He fired his pistols until they were empty and swung his cutlass against wave after wave of soldiers. Even as he was surrounded, he continued to cock his last pistol, refusing to fall. It took 20 sword cuts and 5 bullet wounds to finally bring him down. When the giant finally collapsed, the silence on the deck was deafening. To prove the devil was dead, Maynard ordered Blackbeard's head cut off and fixed to the bowsprit of his ship. Legend says that when they threw his headless body into the black water, it swam 3 laps around the ship before finally sinking into the depths. Blackbeard's reign of terror had lasted less than 2 years, yet it forged a shadow that has covered 3 centuries. He was a man who understood the power of a name and the utility of a monster's mask. Today, archaeologists recover mercury-filled syringes and fine French spices from the wreckage of his flagship, revealing the complex, literate man behind the smoke and the ribbons. We are still hunting for his fabled buried treasure, but his true legacy isn't hidden in the sand. It lives in our collective nightmares, reminding us that sometimes the most dangerous part of man is the story he tells the world about himself. He created a legend that could never truly be killed, because a ghost doesn't need a head to haunt the coast of history.